Hello. I've been asked recently by several people if I would put up a video uh, discussing the causes of World War II, the actions that led up to World War II, and how it relates to the propaganda today and the myths and half-truths that we are being taught about that most important area of time in our world's history. So here goes. I'm going to talk about just a few key points, give you some information that if you are a high school graduate or even a college graduate that you more than likely do not know. I studied World War I and World War II for 4 semesters in total at the university that I attended, and all I received, which I found years later, were half-truths and Allied propaganda. As far as the facts went, I got few facts, and I'm not very happy about that because I worked very hard to go to this university. I will talk about Prussia as it related to Poland, and I will talk about Austria. These are 2 examples that I'll get into briefly today. With concerns to Austria, it's important to note that over 98% of the people in Austria voted for unification with Germany. We are never told this fact. The leader of Austria, under tremendous pressure from his people, decided that he would put up a referendum to see and let the people decide what they wanted to do. But what he did was, the day he said that he would do this, put up for the election to be held 3 days from that day. And if you wanted to vote for unification, you had to print up your own ballot and submit it. And there were no instructions of how to word that or anything. Just no information to let the citizens know what to even put on the ballot that they would have to have printed themselves for unification. This created a tremendous uproar, and it's important to note that if a country had a referendum today and those same types of processes were instituted, the free so-called just world would be up in arms about it. And turns out they were up in arms about it then. The news of the day vividly reported this, and I'm not talking about just German or Austrian papers that would have just been taken over as German troops crossed the border. I'm talking about the New York Times, papers throughout Great Britain and France, and other papers throughout the world were reporting how horrendous and unjust the Austrian leaders' actions were. At any rate, the people were in an uproar and fixing to go into a full-fledged revolution in Austria. They begged the Germans to come in, and the Germans did come in, and it was very peaceful. They were welcomed and treated very good. And another little known fact is that at the point the German troops crossed the border into Austria. Austrian troops crossed the border into Germany. And it's something you never hear. With concerns to Poland, prior to the defeat of Germany in World War I, Prussia set and bordered with Poland, and with the German defeat, Western Prussia was just taken and given to Poland. All of that territory just given to Poland. And that's what in Western Prussia is where Germany and these Germanic Prussians, their border was, keeping them together in cohesion. And that was taken. So you had a smaller Prussia sitting at the northern western section in Poland, completely isolated. And there were reports of the day, there again, not from German newspapers, not from the Austrian papers or Prussian papers, but there again from the New York Times to papers throughout Great Britain, talking about the inhumane practices being committed against these Germanic Prussians from the Polish people. There were rapes, murders, maimings of innocent Germanic peoples. And this went on for many, many years. Hitler, as a matter of fact, and it's important to note, I'm not defending Hitler in any way. His anti-Semitism and all of these other things, I'm not even touching on that subject. So do not get the wrong impression as far as I'm concerned. I'm just someone whom is after truth. It's important to note that history repeats itself. And when we look around at what is happening today and the propaganda that we're being fed, not being able to get truthful history with concerns to World War II, may keep us from preventing World War III from coming. So that's my intention, and that's what all my intent is about, is to educate people. History repeats itself, which means that the propaganda repeats itself. And when truth is forbidden or being kept from us, things do repeat. And this seems to be why history is repeating itself. So I just wanted to make that important distinction with my intentions. At any rate, there again, back to the Polish issue, Hitler went to the League of Nations and begged for them to step in and force Poland to resolve this issue. He asked for a corridor that would connect the German mainland with Prussia. And this seems to be all he wanted. He wanted to, I am sure, get some troops up there, but I do not believe it was for to invade the country in the future. He just wanted to protect these peoples. Not unlike problems that we had in Berlin when the communists built the Berlin Wall and isolated West Germany. Same situation. Germany was having to airlift supplies into Prussia. Same thing. Just the same thing. And people saw this, and they understood this injustice, and especially Americans. And we were, hey, no war with Germany. We don't want to get involved in these situations. Of course, nothing was done, and Germany invaded Poland, and France and Great Britain declared war on Germany. This was in the first week of September of 1939. On the 17th, oddly enough, which today is the 17th of September, on the 17th of September, just a few weeks later, the Soviet Union invaded the eastern part of Poland and took over eastern Poland. And not one of these countries declared war on the Soviet Union. They got a free pass. It's very interesting, isn't it? Maybe I'll put some more videos out at a later date discussing some more of the free passes that the Russians received, and especially with concerns to the unjust murders during World War II. I don't want to get into who killed more than who, because it's all wrong, but I will get into the who got a free pass, and the Soviet Union clearly received a free pass, and that is a huge travesty that cost tens of millions of lives, and what would be today trillions and trillions of dollars. That could have been averted, but for some reason was just totally overlooked and swept away from history. One other point I would like to mention is that the Sudetenland was northern mountainous border regions within Czechoslovakia, which was a country that was created after World War I. The Sudetenland were these mountainous regions that were given to this newly created country, Czechoslovakia, and there were a lot of natural resources there, and there again, newspaper accounts of the day, and the free world, mind you, were reporting on horrendous human rights violations against these Germanic people living in those areas. So when you hear that Hitler or Germany marched troops into the Sudetenland, there was certainly a justification there. So we're not getting real history taught to us. We are getting a plethora of propaganda fed to us with pure lies and half-truths. Today, with concerns to Syria and other problems that we're having in the Middle East, we are getting the exact thing. And when the forces to be keep us from learning true history, seems to me they can continue warmongering propaganda. I know of no other way of looking at that. Many people tell me, they say, Jim, this is not this way in the United States. People are free. You can do and say as you will. And we are free. And I once told a young man on a completely other issue, he told me, he's like, you haven't been taught the correct facts. And I said, young man, no one kept me from the university library. No one kept me from digging up information and investigating. And this young man told me, he said, yeah, and no one kept your university professors from teaching you propaganda and half-truths, now did they? And it took about 6 years for that to really dig in my mindset. And once it did, that 18-year-old young man was responsible. It took all that time, but from that one statement, the horse blinders came off with me. And that's my intent, to get your horse blinders off, to get you independently thinking and thinking objectively. And if we all do that, here's what happens. War stops throughout the world. If there are actions, they will be 100% for justice, and they will be against regimes that in fact are keeping information from their people. I firmly believe that the average man in China has no problem with the average man in America, and vice versa. And the average man in the Middle East has no problems with the average man in Great Britain, and vice versa. The problem is we are propagandized. If we look at Syria today and what's going on there, you are not hearing on none of the network news, from there again, from Fox to MSNBC to Al Jazeera to the BBC, they are not bringing up the fact that the United States and Israel has recently, in recent history, used chemical weapons. We used chemical weapons in Iraq, and Israel has, in recent history, used chemical weapons in the Gaza Strip. Outlawed chemical weapons. I have brought this point up, and I've had fellow Americans try to defend our actions, stating that, oh, well, this chemical is this, and I stop them. The chemical used was a chemical that was banned or put on the list in 1980, and has been banned for any type of use, period. Any type of use, period. So we have actually broken the law as well, and law that we have signed on to. And actuality, it wouldn't make any difference if we signed on to it or not. It's wrong. And any objective human being on the face of the earth that looks at this chemical knows it's wrong. We have got to get this country back to its founding principles. The United States is supposed to stand for justice and freedom. We are supposed to stand for anti-corrupt practices. And today, we are standing against freedoms, liberties, and anti-corruptness. And we have got to do a complete 360 turn around and get our country back to the founding documents and back to the founding principles. America is supposed to be, and this republic cannot stand, the system cannot stand without these freedoms and these principles. It is just not scientifically possible, and we are seeing this today. So it is my fond hope that your horse blinders come off, you start looking around, you start digging for factual information, And if you belong to a political party or a liberal or a conservative concept, that you question these people, you question these concepts, you question the news that comes out daily that you tend to agree with or like, because I can guarantee you what you are getting and what you are ingesting into your system is half truths. You're not getting the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And if you think that you are living in a fantasy land, because you are not. And information, the ingesting of information, is just as important as the food and the chemicals that we ingest into our bodies. So be very careful. Verify things that you were told, and especially when it comes to military actions and foreign policy of the United States. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please subscribe to this channel if you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you so much, and God bless you.